What if the real reason your podcast isn't growing has less to do with your content and more to do with whether people can actually find it? Today's episode is a little different from our usual podcasting morning show format. We're bringing you a special replay from our Empowered Podcasting Live series featuring Julia Levine, also known as the podcast teacher. Julia joined us for a really practical conversation about podcast SEO, and she breaks down why getting found in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcast apps works differently than ranking on Google. We talk about podcast titles, episode titles, show notes, keywords, and the simple changes that can help the right listeners discover your show. So whether you're trying to grow your audience, clean up your podcast strategy, or finally understand what podcast SEO actually means, hi there. This conversation is worth your time. Here's our Empowered Podcasting Live conversation with Julia Levine.
Welcome back, everybody, to Empowered Podcasting Live. I am one of your three hosts, Jason Cercone. As you may have gotten used to, or maybe not, maybe this is the first time you've stumbled upon our weekly live stream. We are with you every Wednesday at 1 o'clock on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Clubhouse. This is our opportunity to connect with you each week and let you know what's happening with the Empowered Podcasting Conference as we gear up for things happening August 21st through 23rd. And it gives us a chance to sit down with some of our sponsors, some of our creator partners, and some of the people that are helping bring empowered podcasting together. Today is no different. First off, I'd like to shout out my two co-hosts, Marc.
Hey,
up,
Jason,
Marc?
and I'm sure people are like, wait, what's going on here? Because usually I know I take the lead.
Marc got tired. He's like,
I got tired.
Yeah, I need a break. When do you guys do this? So I took the reins on this one. But Marc will be contributing just as much as always. He's just not handling the intro today. We're also joined by the one and only Rich Perry. What's up, Rich?
What's going on, dude?
Oh, you know, same old, same old. Our
Rich
usual
coming
Wednesday.
live from the air-conditioned headquarters over there. We can hear
That's
that
right.
loud and clear.
It's better than me being a dripping, sweaty mess. So
Yeah,
I
glad you got your
agree
power back,
wholeheartedly.
brother.
bear with this so you don't have to bear with this.
I think we'll get used to it. And as I said, we are joined every week by one of our partners or one of our sponsors. Today, we've got our creator partner, Julia Levine, in the house. What's up, Julia?
Hey, everybody. So happy to be here with you today.
Glad you could join us. We're going to tap into your expertise, which is podcast SEO. We're also going to talk about your presentation at the conference this year. We don't want to give away everything, but we do want you to provide a little bit of an update or a little bit of a sneak preview, I should say, to our audience so they know exactly what type of value you're bringing to the stage. And hopefully you're going to entice some people to buy their tickets, because I will go into broken record mode in a little bit about tickets. But before we get to that, let's start with you, Julia. You've been podcasting for a while, and you've also been helping a lot of people in podcasting, and your expertise is podcast SEO. This is something that I feel that all podcasters need to be paying more attention to. It was a tremendous opportunity for me to get to learn more from you and my audience on my show, Podcasting Strategy Simplified, when you joined me and really gave us an hour-long masterclass on podcast SEO. And for those that don't know, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I recently rebranded my podcast, and the biggest reason why was I tapped into podcast SEO and realized that I didn't have it. I didn't have what I needed, and SEO is the answer. So when I started focusing more on the things that are going to make my show visible, everything changed. So Julia, on your front, tell us what brought you into the world of podcasting and what made you go all in on podcast SEO.
Yeah, well, I have a background as an elementary school teacher. That was my first life career. And when I decided to leave teaching for various reasons, I was like, what on earth am I going to do with myself? And so I found podcasting as a career because I loved being a podcast listener. I had a period of health in my life where I couldn't have any visual stimulation. And so I was listening to podcasts and audiobooks exclusively for about 6 months. And so I just got really into the medium. And when I decided to leave teaching, I was like, I wonder if I could do something with this. And I first started out in the production side of it, just kind of doing something that I could do from home, flexible hours, whatnot. And I very quickly discovered that I really missed the teaching piece. I missed that, holding someone's hand, walking them through the process, guiding them towards success, that type of thing. And my editing clients were constantly asking me a lot of questions. And so my brand evolved and I rebranded as the podcast teacher and brought back that passion of mine. So combining my passion for podcasting and my passion for teaching as well. And then I love SEO because it's behind the scenes. It does a lot of work for me. So some of you know, I am a really big introvert and I don't love marketing because it sucks my energy. Even though maybe recording a reel or something isn't necessarily interacting with another human, I still have to be quote unquote on. Like I have to put the energy into it. And I am just constantly exhausted by marketing. And I think of marketing kind of as chasing listeners, come listen to my show, come listen to my show. Here's this new episode. And I was just constantly exhausted. And so therefore, I didn't do a lot of it. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to get listeners and have people come to me when they're searching for information rather than me going out and trying to recruit them. And so that's how I got into podcast SEO.
Very cool. And so then let's break this down a little bit here when we talk about podcast SEO, because quite frankly, for the longest time, I'm going to admit it, that my narrow-minded ways, I was thinking it's really all the same, right? Like it's SEO is SEO is SEO. And, my thought was if it's going to work on Google, it's going to work on Apple Podcasts, right? So tell us what podcast SEO is and why do all podcasters need to understand it?
Yes, and that's a super common misconception. And a lot of people, maybe not a lot, some of the people out there who claim to teach podcast SEO are actually teaching Google SEO for your podcast content. So putting your podcast content on your website and getting your website to rank on Google or these days in the AI search engines. But podcast SEO is really focused on the podcast players themselves. So Apple, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Cast, all the different players that we have options for people to listen to our shows. And the algorithm works very differently than Google. And so as a podcaster, especially as an introverted podcaster who doesn't want to do that chasing of listeners, we want to stop chasing them and have them come to us. If we optimize our podcast for the podcast player algorithm specifically, then when a user types something into their Apple search bar, their Spotify search bar, then we can pop up near the top of the results for that search query. And then they're clicking on our show to get the information that they were directly searching for. And we are meeting their information or entertainment need in that moment, which of course leads to a much better fit. So there's the discovery aspect, but it's also about attracting the right listener. So if someone is searching for an information need and your podcast pops up and it meets that information need, then it's a really good fit and you probably have gained a long-term listener, not just a one-time listener. So that's why every podcaster needs to be using podcast SEO.
Love that. Okay. Rich, you have any questions?
I do. I am enjoying wearing my student's hat right now because I worked for about 2 years at a digital marketing agency that focused on SEO and SEM. So for the longest time, admittedly, when people kept saying podcast SEO, that's where my mind went, which is what you were just talking about, is using SEO to rank on Google, but not necessarily in the podcast platforms themselves. So right now, when you said that, I was like, oh, I get it now. Okay. So like for someone like me who came from that digital marketing experience where we had to worry about like headers and like title tags and all that, metadata and stuff like that. Like, what are the major differences between podcast SEO and like a Google SEO? Because I don't know. And I'm sure there's a couple of people out there that are like me that just like, oh, I didn't realize it was two different things. So
yeah, so that's a great question. And there are some similarities in the sense that there are certain fields that you want to optimize on your podcast, just like there are certain fields of a web page that you want to optimize. The biggest difference is that for Google SEO, you want to target one keyword or key phrase only once. And so you're putting all of your best effort onto that page, making it the best page it can possibly be. And you're trying to get that specific page to rank for that specific term. In podcast SEO, it is different because you are trying to rank for one thing constantly. So if someone searches for podcasting, I want to be at the top of that list every time. No matter what episode, I want my show there at the top. And so it is a repetition, a reinforcement of this is my topic. This is what I am an expert at. This is what all of my episodes are about. This is what I should be at the top of the list for. And so Google, we want to target different terms. Podcast SEO, we want to target the same term. That's the biggest difference.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? I don't
Sure.
want to like hop on you guys.
No, go for it.
So, okay. In the event that, let's say it's an interview-based podcast, okay, and you are talking to different people and you're writing the show notes and, with this guest, you talked about this thing. Yeah, it might fit under that umbrella, but this guest, we talked about this thing. This guest, we talked about this thing. So if you're going to use those show notes to describe what was discussed in that particular show, how do you find that through line so that you are ranking for that keyword? Or am I just really overcomplicating it and just confusing myself? Because that's a possibility too.
Well, I think you said something important there of finding the through line, because you don't want to have a random guest on your podcast come and talk about a random topic. So if I'm bringing someone onto my show, we are talking about podcasting in some way. Maybe we're talking about how podcasters can grow an email list. Maybe we're talking about how to make sales from your podcast. Maybe we're talking about SEO or, whatever it is. It's always related to podcasting in some way. Otherwise, I wouldn't be having them on my show. And so you need to tie those things together. You need to make it clear for the algorithm, hey, this is about this, and we sprinkle in some of this. And then also, honestly, I encourage people to have kind of a 3-to-1 content ratio of solo episodes to interview episodes. And I should caveat that and say that's primarily for the population that I work with, which is small business owners who are trying to use a podcast to get clients. So for that specific audience, I recommend a 3-to-1 content ratio. And so guests are, on average once a month or so. I do even less than that on my own show. I can't even remember the last time I had a guest on my show. And that is because I want to position myself as the expert on this topic. And I want to have people getting to know, like, and trust me, and then purchase my programs, do coaching with me, that type of thing. That's the purpose of my podcast.
I think that's incredible. That's one of my favorite things about solo content is when you bring guests on your show, yes, there's always going to be that opportunity for a great conversation. But by default, you're splitting the audience in their belief of who is the expert I should be paying the most attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So with my show, I do every 5 episodes, then I'll have a guest come on. So for me, I've gotten so comfortable in the solo environment that I prefer it. Now, that's not to say that I don't prefer this type of environment too. I guess you can say I'm just taken in all of the worlds of podcasting and made them my own. But I am 100% on board with what you're saying, Julia. I think there is so much value in the solo podcasting. But what I want to throw back at you, for those that aren't comfortable in that particular zone, they're more comfortable having a person come on the show that can carry a little bit of the load. They have somebody to talk to. What pointers can you give them that would help them overcome that obstacle and become a better solo podcaster?
Yeah. So solo podcasts are absolutely tricky. And depending on the purpose of your podcast, again, I kind of caveat that with, my audience that I'm talking to it's a very specific group that I'm talking to. And so everyone listening to this may not fall into that group. So I'm not necessarily saying that, you shouldn't have guests on your podcast at all. And my favorite podcaster to work with is the beginning podcaster. I love helping people from day one start their show. And I tell people that if you are more comfortable with interviews, start with interviews. If that is what's going to get your airplane in the air, so to speak, that's the metaphor I use in my program, then go for it. Do that. Kind of use that as like training wheels and get comfortable, get down the equipment, the editing process, all of that. And then you can transition into doing solo episodes, interspersing them in, doing them as you feel ready. It's not something that has to be, you can only do 10 interviews and then you have to switch type of thing. It's very much up to the individual. For solo content, I'm a scripter. And so I write out a script for all of my solo episodes. I don't necessarily recommend that as a technique because it is a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of practice and performance energy to make it sound like it's not scripted. But that is just the method that works best for me for solo content.
And let me just jump in and say, I think that there is a place for that, right? And I'm saying this because I know on my show in the mornings, I often try to discourage people from using scripts, but people like you, Julia, you've learned, and it does take time and effort and a lot of energy, but you've learned how to deliver those scripts in a way that doesn't feel scripted, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a time and a place, and I just wanted to call that out. Like, if you're going to do that, great, more power to you, but understand it does require some time, effort, and a little bit of talent.
Absolutely. And I credit my ability to, for the most part, not sound scripted. I mean, of course, I am my own worst critic, and I'm like, oh, I can tell, I can pick up on the scriptedness there. But most people tell me they can't tell that I'm scripted. And I credit that to the fact that I spent 12 years reading books to elementary schoolers, which books are essentially scripts. And I essentially had to put on a performance, 5-6 times a day, every day for 12 years. And, trying to keep a group of 5-year-olds entertained and do the voices and, all the different things, making it interesting and not sound robotic, just reading a book to them. So I have that background, which I bring to the table, which I think really is an asset for me in that aspect. But obviously not everyone has that. Yeah. And I will also say that it is a goal of mine to become unscripted, working from an outline or just kind of riffing at some point in time. My biggest problem is I just get in my head too much. I don't love, being the center of attention. I'm an introvert and I have some social anxiety. And so I just get into my head too much. And obviously, talking here to you, I'm not scripted. I'm able to have a conversation. But it's kind of the crutch that I have needed up until this point. And again, I'm actively working on doing more of these opportunities to practice this skill, flex this muscle to become unscripted. But I'm not beating myself up in the process. This is what's working for me right now and able to successfully get content out. And so that's just the accommodation that I need right now. And that's what I'm working with.
Very cool. And sorry to have interrupted you there, but all right. So listen, we have even on this very show shared one particular podcast SEO strategy that's worked well. It's worked particularly well for Jason. We know it's worked well for others. And that particular strategy is adding to in your author field, adding in your podcast title field, extra words that speak to your search engine optimization. So, for example, in Jason's podcast author field, he has his name and then it says podcast strategist and maybe something else along the lines. And I have something similar. And that tends to help. We've seen that work really well for Jason, literally within a day. Sid Meadows, who is a part of the EPC community, he had a lot of success with it within a day as well. So my question to you is, do you have any insider tips that we could apply today that could help us with our SEO?
Yes, absolutely. So the process that I'm going to teach in my presentation at EPC is a 3-step process. And so while I can't give away the whole thing here, I will tell you that the 3 steps are to first pick your keywords, second, put them in strategic places, and then 3, put them in those places again and again, the fields that are, that you do every week. And so that's the 3-step process. And so in terms of where to put those words, step 2, that is absolutely the author field. Jason and I talked about this on his podcast, and he was saying maybe it was a coincidence. I put my title in there with the keyword, and then all of a sudden I was ranking higher. And we had the conversation of, oh no, that was absolutely not a coincidence. That was the algorithm at work. And so every podcast player has their own algorithm. And so, they have different preferences and different things. But for Apple specifically, they have said that the 3 fields that they most heavily weight in the search results are the show title, the author field, the creator field, and the episode titles. And so those are the 3 places that you want to put your keywords. And again, that's step 1 of the process, is figuring out what those keywords are, which I'll talk more about in my presentation at EPC. So you got to be there to learn that part.
Empoweredpodcasting.com.
Yes. Shameless plug.
Tickets go up July 15th. Get them today.
Yeah. And so putting them in those 3 places, and 2 of those places, the show title and the author field, are completely set it and forget it. You put the keywords in those places and you don't have to touch it again. The episode title, obviously, you have to do that every week. And there's some nuance there with making it clickable and appealing to the human, but also to the algorithm and that kind of thing. So that one's a little bit trickier. But those are the 3 key places, and author is definitely one of them.
It's always important to point this out, and I know that Julia and I talked about this on my show. It's July 8th, 2026, as we come together today to talk about these things. That's what's working today. There is always that possibility that even by the time we finish this live stream, they change something on us and move the goalpost. So depending on when you hear this, maybe that's not still the case. Like you find this live stream in some archive 5 years from now. But I'm enamored by this. I love that. Like, again, for me, it was just seeing it work and then saying, wow, I was totally missing the boat. My biggest focus, and I'm sure, Julia, you've worked with people that have had this same dilemma, was trying to make SEO-friendly show notes and making those be what stood out and ultimately drove SEO and visibility. When in reality, the biggest podcast engine or podcast player on the planet didn't give a crap, wasn't doing anything with that. So that, to me, I immediately dialed it back from there. And I know I had told you the story about how I had connected with someone a few years ago who told me to max out the characters in that space, and that would help with SEO. And I could just never buy into that because I just envisioned someone opening their podcast app and scrolling and then eventually getting so bored they didn't listen to the podcast. So much to focus on this, but really, when you think about it, even though there's a lot to focus on, there's just these few subtle points that if you pay attention to them, you're going to help your show tremendously.
Absolutely. And every algorithm is different. You know, there are some distinct differences between Apple and Spotify. Spotify tends to care more about descriptions and things like that, but even they don't heavily weight the show notes, the episode specific description section. And so I absolutely, totally disagree with that person who told you to fill all the characters. You and I talked about this on your show of that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And we want to think about the human first and think about what do they need in the show notes. And usually that is some kind of extra context or incentive to press play, a preview of what they're going to get in the episode, why it's worth their time. And then also reference information of what was mentioned in the episode that maybe they missed because they were multitasking, or something to follow up on, that kind of thing.
I want to throw this out to all of you, and then we'll switch gears and talk a little bit about the conference. But this is just something that I've been thinking about, and I don't know if this would have any impact on SEO, but my thinking was this. If you notice, when you pull up a podcast in your podcast player, I'm thinking of Apple Podcasts specifically because that's the one I use, you get the first sentence of the show notes. Do you feel that is a good space or a good spot to throw in maybe your best hook? Maybe your title might be your better hook, but like the secondary hook would be that first line. Again, this is just something I'm spitballing with. I'm wondering if this would play a role in helping people understand very quickly what they're going to experience when they press play. And ultimately, do you feel something like that would drive more people to press that play button? Opening that to the floor.
So you're actually asking more from a human perspective versus how it's going to work with SEO. Yeah, I mean, look, I would agree with that. And it's actually making me rethink a little bit about what I'm doing right now with our show notes. But yeah, I would say that is your next hook, like you put it, secondary hook. And I think that's really valuable space. And going back to another point you made earlier, I don't think people are scrolling through pages and pages of show notes. No. So you might as well get the most valuable piece of information you can at the very top for them to really get them to get hooked in, if you will. That's my thought. My
thinking is if they're not going to look at show notes at all, or maybe they don't reference the show notes until they're prompted to while listening to the show, like, hey, there's a link in the show notes, please click that and you're going to get 20% off your ticket for EPC, something like that. But in the whole process of this, okay, the show or the cover grabbed my attention when I was scrolling. I liked the name of this show. The title jumped out at me. Now I've got this secondary line that says, okay, this is just another piece of information. This is enough for me to press play. Something I want to play with. I don't even know if I'd be able to tell. It's probably hard to say that, oh yeah, that's what drove more listenership. But it seems like it's something we could all capitalize on. That's pretty valuable real estate.
Longworth in the chat said, please don't start your show notes with "in this episode." Yeah. And that actually reminded me, okay, I do actually lead with some kind of secondary hook first, and then I follow that up. I do follow it up usually with something like "in this episode," but I don't like to start it that way either. That makes sense. And by the way, I'm supposed to pass along a note to you, Julia. BC Babbles in the YouTube chat says he loves your background. Wanted you to know that.
Oh, thanks so much, BC. I appreciate that. Got to keep it fun around here.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts as far as Jason's question goes, Julia?
I agree with what you said, Mark. And I think that it would really be interesting. I don't know if there's people in the chat that want to chime in, but I'm curious how many podcast listeners, when they are searching their podcast player, so not for a show that is like their regular routine, but a show, finding a new show, they have an information need, they're searching, looking through. I'm wondering how many people look at that first sentence or click into the show notes to read more before they press play. I'd be really curious to know how many people do that. I typically go by mostly the title.
Yeah.
And if they have a good title, that's all they need. Sometimes if it's not so great of a title, I will click into the episode description for more context and like, what really are they talking about here? Is this what I'm looking for? Is this going to meet my need? And I absolutely agree with Jennifer. The cardinal sin is to start your show notes within this episode. And so that is completely banned in my world. You can start the second sentence.
Just for clarification, why?
But not the first one.
Well, why? Let's put that out there. Why is that?
Absolutely. So it's because, A, it doesn't really give any value. It takes valuable space away from a hook that you could put there that would influence someone to press play. And then also, if you're in your podcast player and you're looking at the list of episodes, the first line under each episode is going to look identical at the beginning. So episode 20 in this episode, episode 19 in this episode. Yeah. And so especially if you're on a phone where you have very few characters displayed, that phrase in this episode eats up so much valuable space.
Makes sense.
It really does. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so, and Julie...
I feel like I just got scolded.
Oh, Rich.
Totally.
I could be guilty of this one.
I think at some point we all have been.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
You know, it's just, this is how we learn. This is how we learn and grow.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to pause, but on the other side of this, I do want you to respond, Julia, to just show notes in general. How serious do we need to be taking them as podcasters as far as SEO goes? And I mean, you've alluded a little bit to it, but I just want to get a little more of your take on that. And first, Jason, you alluded a moment ago when you slipped that in there that prices for EPC are going up soon. So I was curious if you would just share a little bit more about that. What are they going up to and when are they going up again?
Okay, this is an extremely important message this week. And I know that at the end of the show, we will announce that we are preempted next week, meaning we won't be doing a show. So we won't be here to remind you. So this is the last live reminder that you get that ticket prices go up on July 15th. They go from $269 to $299. That will be the last price increase that we have on our tickets. But why spend the extra $30? Go get them now. Jump over to empoweredpodcasting.com. Find one of the many buttons that says buy your tickets. And do we want to give a code, guys?
Yeah, well, we can give all three of our codes and let people decide which one they want to support. It's going to be all the same except for our first name. So it's either EPC Marc 20, Marc spelled with a C, EPC Jason 20, or EPC Rich 20. Pick your poison and get 20% off your tickets.
Yes, or I'll tell you what, I'm gonna one up us. I'm gonna one up that code because I know Julia is one of our new affiliates.
Oh, so that's right.
I would say find Julia and find her affiliate link.
You can go to thepodcastteacher.com/EPC.
Nice. Boom. Nice. Made it nice and easy. I love that. Cool.
There you go. Yes. Also 20%, right?
Yes. Also 20%.
There
off.
it is.
Yep.
There. Now they can really pick their poison. And we're going to, all the three of us are going to encourage, if you're going to go get it, go use Julia's link.
Yes, 100%.
Let's support Julia a little bit here because that is what our creator programs, our affiliate programs are all about. It's really... Yes, sure. We're not trying to hide anything. Yeah, it does help the conference itself, but really the initiative here is to help our community, whether it's to make some more money, whether it's to get more butts in seats so that they can come see their favorite speaker. That's why we're doing all these things. So yeah, please support our community.
Yeah, we know how much value is packed into that room because we've been there, we've experienced it, and we want more people to see that and feel it in person. So this is a tremendous way for us to incentivize our community members to spread the word. Like Marc said, get more people in the room. You're coming to see your favorite speakers, but I guarantee you're going to find somebody else that has something of interest for you. And on top of that, all the networking you get to do, it's a weekend you don't want to miss. Hottest weekend of the summer, boys and girls.
And it could be literally the hottest weekend.
That is probably, well, I don't know. If last week was show, but I think that this program is like I said, a great way for our community members to not only monetize their efforts, but to help get more people's eyes on Empowered Podcasting, not just the conference itself, but the brand as a whole. We want to expand and do more things like we do here with our live stream, providing that education, giving our members inside access. And this is a great way for that to all come together. So if there's anybody out there that's listening or watching that hasn't had an opportunity to learn about the affiliate program, just reach out to us. We're happy to share the information. And if you find it to your liking, we'll get you started.
Yeah. And you can go to empoweredpodcasting.com to do that. And we've just added a contact us section on the website, something that I realized this morning. Why don't we have that on our website? So now you can go do that. Yes. Go do that and inquire if you'd like to be a part of any of these different programs that we're talking about. And we have some more show to do here, so don't go anywhere yet. So let's go back to that question, Julia, and then we're going to ask you a little bit about your involvement, more about your involvement here with Empowered Podcasting. So yeah, how important, how serious should we be taking our show notes section itself as far as SEO is concerned?
not super seriously, to be honest. At least that's my approach, my philosophy. So I think your show notes need to have a couple key things in them. I think you need to have a brief, and I'm talking like 2-3 sentences, brief description of kind of what's in the episode, additional context. Don't give everything away in there. I've seen some show notes where they're like, in this episode, we tell you this and this.
Yep.
And I'm like, why do I need to listen to the episode then? Because you just told me.
Yep.
So give a nice little preview, create some curiosity, but let them know why it's worth their time today. And so that's your first component. Your second component is anything that you have referenced in the episode. So if you mentioned a particular study or a link for them to go to, make sure those are in your show notes. We know podcasters are multitasking, and so they need a place to reference that. And third, have some contact information for you, some way to connect with you, take a next step, whether that is connecting with you on a social platform, whether that's your website. I have gotten a couple emails from people who said, I listened to several podcasts about podcasting. I have a question, and I chose to contact you because you're the only one who had your email in the show notes. And I was like, oh, it didn't even occur to me that other people might not do that. So those are the 3 components: some information about the episode, reference links, and some contact information.
How many would you know, if I asked you this question, I'm curious, how many characters on average would you say you use? Because like Jason said, he was once advised, use all 4,000 characters. What, do you have an idea? Like, do you keep it that tight?
I mean, you can go check out my show, Podcasting for Solopreneurs, and check out my show notes. They're pretty short. I'd say, I don't know, character limits off the top of my head, but I'd say maybe 500 characters.
Yeah.
And I spend maybe 5-10 minutes doing that section. Depends on how hard it is to come up with that hook sentence. Sometimes it writes itself. Sometimes it needs a little thinking. But that's the part I do. And then the rest is just there each week. Okay. So the whole thing is not very much at all.
Can I throw this out there at you guys? And this is probably going to be more rhetorical than anything. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Buzzsprout right now gives you 4,000 characters, I think. I can't remember the exact number. And as we're talking about, that's a lot. Why do they give you so much? It feels like they're trying to trick you. Right? Like, here's all this space, write a book. And then we're just overthinking it in a lot of scenarios.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah. Why did they give us so much space? There was probably a time where a lot of podcasters felt like they didn't have enough space. I don't know. And so they're just giving us more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, and it's entirely possible that in the beginning, this all was predicated on more words versus the audio before the medium became more nuanced today. I could be completely wrong too. I don't know.
Can I ask another silly question real quick?
Yeah, but I feel like Julia was going to chime in on that one.
I was just going to say that, things are changing on a day-by-day basis. As we pointed out a few minutes ago, what we're saying is accurate as of today, but it might not be accurate in an hour or a week or a month.
Yeah, right.
And so maybe they just decided to go bigger and say we'd rather have more space if that becomes a best practice. And then leave it at that. But I don't know. We got to get Tom Rossi in and ask him.
That's right. By the way, stick around if you're still here and listening. We're going to also, I know we just told you how you can get 20% off. We're going to share in a little while how you can get free tickets to Empowered Podcasting. So stick around for that. And Rich, you had something?
I did. Quick question about the difference between Google SEO and podcast SEO. When you're doing like Google SEO, you're supposed to keep everything original. You're not supposed to repeat, the same content in one article to another article. But when it comes to podcast SEO, like you had mentioned, Julia, that some of the information at the bottom could be, your email address and links and things of that nature. So my question is, do you get dinged for having that same content at the bottom repeated between episodes, or do you not get dinged for having you know what I'm saying? Like every episode has the same footer information, we'll call it, where it's like your contact information, your links for socials and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. And I don't think that it has any negative impact, at least not to the extent of my knowledge. And I think that because podcast player SEO works differently than Google SEO, that it would make sense that it doesn't ding you because the podcast player algorithm is looking for repetition. It's looking for consistency. It's looking for emphasis and expertise. And so, I mean, I don't know that my contact information is making any difference in there, but the player algorithm is looking for, wow, this person talks about podcasting in every single one of their episodes. When someone searches for podcasting, we should probably serve up this podcast because it's highly relevant. And so it's based on, it's like cumulative. And so the more content you have, the happier the algorithm is. I should say, the more content you have about the same topic, the happier the algorithm is. And obviously, this probably goes without saying, but we want to have different facets within our topic, but we always want to be talking about our core topic so that the algorithm learns, like, that is what this show is about.
One other thing I wanted to ask too, because it's something I've noticed more, my big keywords, podcasting and podcasting strategy, obviously baked right into the title of my show. Something I've noticed happening more frequently now, and it's a very good thing, when I search those keyword terms to see where I'm appearing, it's not just in the show. Like if someone's searching for shows, my podcast has moved up significantly since I did my rebrand. But I've got multiple episodes that are appearing in the episode tab. And that's something I feel might get overlooked by some people, that you're only trying to rank and get visible for your actual show as a whole, but getting relevant terms. And I think what's really added to that is I started doing a weekly show where it's a 5-minute answer a specific question that I've seen asked in the podcasting space. So I know people are looking for answers to that question. Those ones are starting to show up more, but I could give in search, I could see 5 or 6 of my episodes for those keyword terms. Is there anything specific that we haven't talked about that would drive that, or have we already covered the basics that would help someone rank in that respect as well?
So we've already covered the basics that would help someone rank in that area. And I have to remember, that's a good thing to point out, is that I typically work with beginners. And so we are crafting their show from day one. And so we're talking about what their core topic is and how to get their show in the results. They're just the show as a whole. But the search results do break it into shows and episodes. And so, yes, we absolutely are going to be showing up in that area as well, as long as we are following those best practices that we talked about of putting the keyword in the strategic places. Episode titles specifically is important to show up in the episodes area. And I also have to say, Jason, did you steal my idea? I do the Friday 5-minute episode.
Oh, did I? No, I honestly, the idea, it was this funny you say that, because I had thought of doing that as an idea, and then we were on one of the morning shows and Ralph brought it up.
Oh.
And I was like, Ralph, did you steal my idea? I was just about to roll this out. So apparently it's not just one person thinking of this really good idea here.
Yes, apparently we are all just independently brilliant.
Yes, absolutely right.
I think so. Or the universe is demanding that somebody put this damn show on already. So who's going to heed the call?
I'll have to start doing 2 a week. Like, pull an Andy Dufresne. If I want things done, I'm going to have to do 2 a week.
Julia, I want to ask you a little bit about the conference itself from your perspective, because we share ours all the time, which, by the way, all 3 of us will be on the Podcasting Morning Show tomorrow morning, Thursday, talking all about our experience and how we got to where we are today. But with you, I want to know more about you and how you got to where you are with this conference today. What first attracted you to Empowered Podcasting, and what are you most looking forward to this year coming up?
Yeah. So here's the part where I should probably have some type of filter. But to be brutally honest with you, I applied to speak at Empowered Podcasting too. I didn't know anything about the conference. I was just trying to get more visibility. And I'm like, hey, here's a podcasting conference. I would love to speak at a podcasting conference because this is what I do. Get myself in front of some podcasters and apply to speak. And so I applied to speak, wasn't selected, totally cool, but as a consolation prize, I got 50% off my ticket or something like that. So I bought my ticket and was like, well, I'll go and see what this conference is all about. And then when it came time to go to the conference, I was like, introvert mode. I don't want to go to this. And it was literally like a 24-hour before decision of, am I actually going to go to this? Am I not? And I had maybe listened to Podcasting Morning Show, the chat back then, once or twice, but I really didn't know anything about what empowered podcasting was all about, what your mission was, any of that stuff. So it was a last minute decision. I was like, you know what? This isn't going to hurt anything. It could be a good opportunity for me. Let me just go get out of my comfort zone and just do this. And I am so, so glad that I did, because it's one of the best conferences I have ever attended in the podcasting realm. But I attended conferences all the time as a teacher, tech conferences, library conferences, teaching conferences. And it's just one of the most well-rounded, intimate conferences that I have ever been to. And that 24-hour window was like, and me not being selected as a speaker and getting the 50% off, like that is what spurred the whole thing. And it was meant to work out that way. And I'm so, so thankful that it did. It was an amazing experience.
Who was the son of a that didn't select you
I know.
to speak?
I know. I'm so embarrassed.
Word with that guy.
I've gotten a lot more credibility over the last year. So,
I'm sorry.
Back then.
Julia, if you saw the list of amazing submissions that we have to send,
I believe it.
It's not the easy. Again, like I've always told everybody, we want that process to be hard. We want as many great people submitting, and it gives us, even if we can't choose you for that specific year, I know I'm putting a lot of people on file in my head. Like, okay, if they're coming back next year, they're submitting next year, we want them. We want to make sure we're continuing to put great people in the spotlight. So you're on this year.
I don't envy your job. And I am so thankful to be a presenter this year because of the experience I had last year. I think I wouldn't have appreciated it as much if that were my first time attending and I was speaking as well. I wouldn't have kind of known the vibe and all of that stuff. So I'm really glad that it worked out this way and that I was able to be an attendee first and now return as a speaker.
Awesome. So relatable too, because, and Jason, I know you could speak to this too, but I think a lot of us, when we apply to speak at these different conferences for the first time and then we get denied, a lot of us get bitter about it. Like, let's just be real, right? Like, it's
I was very rational.
Punch.
No, I felt I handled it very well.
Oh, yeah, sure you did. But yeah, so that's the thing, is that, like, I appreciate you sharing this, Julia, because you could have just given up on it altogether. And I think both you and the community would have lost out on a lot of different things, both being having you as a part of the community and all this knowledge that you can share with us now. And sometimes it is a little bit of a courtship between the speaker and the event, right? We got to get to know you. And sometimes it's hard to select people that we've never met, we've never talked to for the first time. And I think a lot of conferences can say the same thing. I think that's why Podcast Movement this year has decided to open up some of the speaker selection to the podcast community. And they're letting people vote on it, right? For that very reason, because I'm sure they don't know everybody. So it's hard to do that. So I thank you too for sharing that and being so honest about it. And yeah, I'm grateful that you're coming back this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Seeing the people again that are returning that I connected with last year, but also meeting new people, because the community that you all carefully curate is just the best group of people.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. All right. Any other questions for Julia? I know we have a couple of other things, including some giveaways and how you can get some free tickets to Empowered Podcasting. Any other questions for Julia? You guys good?
I'm good. Julia, again, thank you for all that. I'm sorry, Richard, if you got something, I know I'm good. I just want to thank you for joining us. This is always informative.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So since I've teased it, we have a giveaway we have to share too, but since I teased it, I'll just lead off and then I'll let you gentlemen chime in too. But we had some volunteers for the conference have to pull out unexpectedly. unforeseen circumstances, they couldn't make it work. So we have now a total of around 6, more the merrier really, but we want to try to fill another 6 spots for volunteers. And in return, we will give you a free ticket. You will have full access to the event. All we'll ask is occasionally we may have to pull you away to help us with certain things, responsibilities going on, but we want to give you that ticket, let you enjoy the conference, get to know this awesome community, as Julia had put it. And all you got to do is say, yeah, I want in on this. And we'll sit down and talk to you, make sure it's a good fit, and then hand you your free ticket, and you'll join us in August. Any things? Let me try to get my words in order here. Any other things you guys want to add? Yeah. And you're not kidding with the type of people. I mean, we have everything from the new podcaster to podcast Hall of Famers. So you are literally going to get the full gamut of different types of content creators and be able to learn from them, have conversations from them, and potentially start collaborations with them down the road. So yeah, I'm with you there, Rich. It's a really powerful weekend with some really impressive people. Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to do that, again, it's empoweredpodcasting.com. Just do the contact us form and let us know you're interested in volunteering. Go ahead, Rich. Rich is looking right now. Oh, you're looking in the chat. Yes. Yeah. I've had that multiple times happen at different conferences. Yep.
Beautiful.
Let's shout out some of our sponsors that are helping us make this a success before the event even happens. So our title sponsor is the Content Creators Accountant. Big shout out to Ralph. We got Bourbon Barrel Podcasting. Jennifer's been in the chat the entire afternoon, or the entire show. Jennifer, thank you for helping us be a successful event. Maker's Machine, we talked to Shay and Adam last week. Also, MoPod will be sponsoring one of our pre-party events. Moving on to our creator partners, we got the Trend Report podcast, Mozen Wellness, the podcast teacher. There she is right now. We've been talking to Julia the entire time. Glad to have you as one of our content creator partners. Also, Success on Social, Volt Productions, Your Brand Amplified, and Cassiano Creative. I know BC's been in the chat the entire time. Grateful to have you both as our creator partners. And then some of our in-kind partners as well. Want to shout out Podfest, also Home Mastery Studio and Podglue, our friend Janaid, who's going to be running the AV. Shouts out to Pod News and Podpage, Webby AI, Military Creator Con, and Earbuds Podcast Collective, and then also the Podcast Professionals Association. We truly appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for making EPC 3 a success before we even get to the venue. And if you are watching right now, you want a shout out from me next week or every week after that, and be a part of this success, be a part of the community in a real official way, reach out to me. We'd love to have you as a sponsor. We'll have that conversation. So that's my piece. I appreciate.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. And no show next week. We are back July 22nd. Jessica Schiller is joining us for an awesome conversation. Looking forward to that. And before we go, Jason, do you want to share a little bit about the giveaway we're doing?
Yeah, as I said, I should have put it next to me. So last week I had the visual, but as you know or may not know, when you purchase your ticket to Empowered Podcasting, to the Empowered Podcasting Conference, you are automatically entered to win a brand new Shure MV7 Plus microphone. So get your ticket. You're getting access to all of this incredible information and networking. And just like we said, the hottest weekend of the summer is happening August 21st through 23rd. Just for showing up, you're going to get a chance to win a brand new Shure MV7 Plus microphone. So one last time, empoweredpodcasting.com. Get your ticket. Actually, Julia, share your link.
Yeah, it's thepodcastteacher.com/EPC. And then you'll just put in the generic code of EPC20 to get your 20% off.
There you go. So if you do that before July 15th, you'll take advantage of the savings. Ticket prices will go up to $299 on July 15th. That will be the last price increase, but we'd like you to take advantage of this now. Get your tickets. If the last hour hasn't convinced you to join us in Charlotte, go back and listen to some of the past episodes because one of them is damn sure going to make you want to join us. But we're looking forward to having a great weekend. And again, Empowered Podcasting. I'm sorry, use Julia's link. Forget I said anything. Get your ticket from Julia's link.
Awesome.
Thank
well,
you, guys.
Julia, thank you again. Rich, Jason, thank you for taking the lead today. Appreciate you. We are, like I said, not back next week. We are back July 22nd with an all-new Empowered Podcasting Live. Come join us. And of course, come join us in August, as Jason said, for that hottest weekend of the summer. So until then, make it a great day, everybody. Take care.